Hello BookTube, welcome back to my 2026 library tour. In this episode, German history. Starting with Iron Kingdom, The Rise and Downfall of Prussia, 1600 to 1947 by Christopher Clark. So this is a history of Prussia, which for centuries was one of the dominant states in the German-speaking lands. I have not read this book yet. Nor have I read a biography of Prussia's greatest king, Friedrich the Great, King of Prussia, by Tim Blanning. So this is a biography of Friedrich the Great. The next two books are about the Franco-Prussian War, starting with the Franco-Prussian War, the German conquest of France in 1870 to 1871 by Geoffrey Warrow. So this came out about 25 odd years ago and was the first book on the Franco-Prussian War that I read, and I rather enjoyed it. However, this book has absolutely been superseded and surpassed by the next book, Bismarck's War, The Franco-Prussian War and the Making of Modern Europe by Rachel Crastill. This is a phenomenal book that looks at the Franco-Prussian War. It is amazing. I loved it. I read it shortly after it came out in 2022 or 2023, and it blew me away. This book not only covers the war itself, but also the civilian toll that the war inflicted. It's brilliant. Next is Iron and Blood, The Rise and Fall of the German Empire, 1871 to 1918 by Katja Hoyer. So this is an unfortunately very slim history of the German Empire. My only issue with this book is that it is not 2 or 3 times bigger, which, given some of Hoyer's more recent work, could have been. And I have a biography of one of the men who's most responsible for putting the German Empire together. This is Bismarck, A Life by Jonathan Steinberg. I tried to get into this a few years ago, and I did not succeed. The next book is November 1918, The German Revolution by Robert Gerwarth. This is good. I have not read A History of the Weimar Republic, From the Collapse of the Empire to Hindenburg's Election, Volume 1 by Eric Ike, which may be a work in translation. Yes. It is translated from the German by Harlan P. Hansen and Robert G. L. Waite. I've had that book forever, though. Sticking with Weimar, this is Vertigo, The Rise and Fall of Weimar Germany by Harold Yarner, translated from the German by Sean Whiteside. So this is a history of the Weimar Republic, which existed from the end of the First World War up through to 1933 when Hitler took power. I tried to get into this book at least once, and I did not quite succeed. Yarner's style is hit or miss. I also have 2 books on 1923. The first is Germany, 1923 by Volker Ulrich, translated from the German by Jefferson Chase. So this is a history of a pivotal year in German history when there was a hyperinflation crisis, and it was also the year of Hitler's beer hall putsch. I have not read this one yet, but I have read another book on the same subject, 1923, The Crisis of German Democracy in the Year of Hitler's Putsch by Mark William Jones. And this one was okay. This is Darkness Falling, The Strange Death of the Weimar Republic, 1930 to 1933, by Peter Walther. I believe this is a work in translation. Yes, it is translated from the German by Peter Lewis. I've not gotten around to it yet. I have read In Hitler's Munich, Jews, the Revolution, and the Rise of Nazism by Michael Brenner, translated from the German by Jeremiah Reamer. So this is a really good book. I quite enjoyed it when I read it a few years ago, and I read a review of it in Open Letters. I think another work in translation of German history is Culture in the Third Reich by Moritz Vollmer, and it is translated by Jeremy Noakes and Leslie Sharp. So this is a history of culture in the Third Reich and how the Nazis took over publishing and film and theater and all of that and tried to make it their own. A very harrowing book. The next two books are a biography of Hitler himself. First is Hitler Ascent, 1889 to 1939, by Volker Ulrich, and translated from the German by Jefferson Chase. The second book in the duology is Hitler Downfall, 1939 to 1945, which is again translated by Jefferson Chase. And then I have a duology of, I think it's a duology, by Frank McDonough, The Hitler Years, Triumph 1933 to 1939. And the other book is Disaster 1914 to 1945. I think there's, he has a book on Weimar and maybe a book on the post-war period. So that finishes off this shelf. Tomorrow will be some more German history before we get to the Habsburgs, mostly Maria Theresa, but the rest of the family also make appearances. Anyway, BookTube, until then, thank you and have a great rest of your day.